Good morning, everybody, and welcome wherever you are. If you look at my background, that's the view that we have every day of what's called Cypress Mountain. And it's quite beautiful. But all that other color there, it's all white. We've seen nothing but white for, I guess, maybe the middle of December. So welcome to 8,000 feet in the Rocky Mountains. But we're going to talk about silence and solitude. And much of it this morning, I'll talk about how I'm looking at it and what's going on through my filter, my experience. Now, silence is not just no noise. A lot of us think, well, I'm in silence. Well, there's a lot going on in here. It's pretty noisy. So I guess the first silence that you might try for is just to have it quiet around you, or at least whatever sound there is, you're not paying attention to it. Sometimes we cannot get complete silence. Up here, of course, we can, but you don't have to have complete silence, just silence in the sense that you're not paying attention to it. You're not focused on it. It's just background. I'll talk more about that. So that's the kind of silence that we want to move into. The next thing is solitude. Now, solitude isn't just being alone. You don't have to be alone to be in solitude. What you have to do is let go of your friends. That is, or your non-friends, your enemies, which when you're seeking some solitude are your thoughts, your fantasies, the stories you're telling yourself inside your head. All you are filled, you walk around all day long with plenty of companions. Even if you think you're alone in relation to other individuals, you're never alone when you're focused on all that's going on inside your head. So that's the kind of solitude that we're looking for, where you're no longer paying attention to your thoughts. So you're not paying attention to sounds outside, and you're not paying attention to thoughts inside. So that's the kind of silence and solitude that we seek to facilitate, if you will, God's work, which is prayer. I hear people say, prayer is so much work. If you're doing it, that's well, yeah, when you're talking prayer, yes, but when you're trying to get into deep meditation, you're not doing the work. If you're doing the work, it's not deep meditation. It's meditating on something, but it's not deep meditation. It's not going to change you from any interior depth. So deep meditation, or the contemplative, if you will, that's God's work. What you're trying to do is not get in the way. And that's what I'm trying to do up here. I'm trying to not get in God's way. And so my whole life, hopefully, is trying to do that. We'll see how it might work in your life. So I hear one of the things that people say is when I'm up here, especially when I used to come up here in the summertime, they would say, Father, are you on vacation in the monastery? I don't understand what that meant, but I would try to be nice. But why would they even think I was on vacation? Because all they know is priests running around working. That's all they see. If a priest was in deep meditation, they don't see that. So they figure if you're not in the parish doing something, or if you're not working in the way that they know work, getting projects and tasks done, you must be on vacation. Because when they're not doing any of that stuff, that's opportunity for vacation for them. So I don't expect people to understand the monastic life or even the contemplative life that you may be trying to live yourself. So, in one sense, I'm on somewhat of a permanent vacation in in terms of trying to practice a deeper prayer. That is, I'm trying to make my whole day somehow uh, in support of that. Now, it doesn't mean I sit there, Almighty Padre, I don't. I'm not doing that all day, of course. But what I'm doing during the day uh, is got to be in support of that whole idea of silence and solitude, so that when I do try to sit in a quiet uh, solitude fashion, it's not so easy. I'm not segueing from watching a Bronco football game to suddenly trying to meditate or things like that. So I'm trying to get the whole day to be in support of that. So I may be doing some things during the day that everybody would be doing, but hopefully I'm doing it in a manner, mode, way that never gets too far from the interior life, if you will. And I think this is going to be very practical for your uh, everyday activities because when we separate ourselves from the heart center, if we get too separated from that, what happens? We get selfish, we get resentful, we get angry, we get easily hurt, and we start living our life with others in that manner. So it's very important to have some connection with that heart center. Otherwise, we take it out on the world around us, and we don't want to do that. So, vacation, I'm vacating. I'm trying to vacate, not pay attention so much to all my thoughts. Now, some thoughts you have to pay attention to. If I'm baking bread, I need to be attentive to what I'm doing so the loaf turns out well. Otherwise, the people putting on this uh, session this morning, Chris and Rocio, they get upset. They said, oh, the bread stinks. What the heck? Let's cut this guy off. So I got to make good bread. So I got to pay attention. But at the same time, while I'm paying attention, I hope that I'm a little bit heart connected so that I'm making bread. Oh, so two people are making bread. One is all frantic and fanatic about it, and the other is at peace. But they're both seemingly from the outside making bread. So it can be, you can be doing something, say, I'm upset with everything around here. And the person next to you says, I see everything the same, but I'm not upset. Why not? And you think they're obtuse or they're not in touch with reality. No, they're in touch with a very deep reality, and you're not. And it shows in our outward behavior and in the way we feel, all upset and so on. So I'm trying to vacate or empty out this negativity that can arise up when I'm ego focused. Uh, and so what I need to do, well, how do you do that? Well, at least some part of the day, what I try to do, and hopefully you do, and I do get up early, okay. I go to bed early too, so I'm not doing it at night. What I try to do, it's for some part of the day, is to stay quiet in one room, in one space. And when you think about it, a lot of people, they don't do that. Their lives are so frenetic. They're trying to get a little quiet here, a little quiet there. Well, it may be the best you can do under the circumstances. Everybody has a different life and issues to come up from day to day. And no, of course, there's emergencies and then everything's out the window. But I try to spend a certain amount of time each day in one space, in one room. And there is a saying in the monastic traditions, sit in your cell and your cell will teach you everything. That never made any sense to me until I started to do it. What it will teach you is what's going on inside your head, because as you're trying to let go of thoughts, you're noticing what they are sometimes. Oh my gosh, whoa, stuff I'm thinking about. this is crazy, or this is silly to be thinking about this. This is nonsense, or this is a fantasy. And so you find that a lot of your friends, your thoughts, are really not very useful in your regular day-to-day operations, or they have something to do with your day-to-day operations, but nothing's going to change by your thinking about them. I find that with some of my thoughts, as the thinking about it didn't change it one iota. It may not change at all. What I need to change is my attitude to things that don't change on the outside. I'm about interior change. I don't know that I can change much out there, but maybe some things might change if I bring a certain attitude towards it based upon my ability to get silent uh, and in solitude, not paying attention to the noise around me and the noise inside me. So it's not just an outward solitude uh, that I'm looking for, it's an interior solitude, letting go of my thoughts. That doesn't mean you erase them or get rid of them. We're not about that. The mind thinks. That's all it knows how to do. The mind's not a meditator. The mind's a talker and a thinker. So I need to have some personal emptying of the clutter that is within me, my companion thoughts, for a little while each day. And when you practice that, sitting in one place each day for a little while, you find that it becomes little by little easier to let go of thoughts when you're doing other things. I'll go back to bread baking. I'll be baking bread, and all of a sudden, some thought comes into my mind. It has nothing to do with baking bread. It has something to do with a past event that I could be resentful about, or a future event that I'm frightened about. And I realize, oh, let it go. And I'm able to let it go because I practiced letting go when I was sitting quietly in one room, in one space, for a little while that morning. So you realize that you get an aptitude for something. I mean, think of it if you were trying to get into physical fitness, jogging. Okay, I know something about jogging. Well, when you start out, it's not easy. Uh, it's real easy, and then the next day you feel, oh, this is terrible, I can't do this. No, it's little by little by little, because your whole body has to adjust. That is, if you can jog at all, your whole body has to adjust. Well, your whole body, spirit, life has to adjust to learning how to let go of your companion thoughts that aren't going to do you any good in the present moment. So you get a facility for it by practicing it in spiritual meditation. Okay. And what else you do when you, okay, so you're making all this room. Okay, I'm not paying attention to my thought. What's going on in there now? I got a lot of space that I filled up with words and thoughts and fears and hopes and anxiety and so on. Well, what you're doing is you're making room for God, if you will. Uh, I sometimes think of God. It's all cramped up inside, but he can't get any room because it just be filled with thoughts. Well, you got to let God have some space, if you will. Think of it that way. Letting God have some space. And God wants a lot of space. As a matter of fact, I suspect God wants all of you. That's ultimately what this contemplative life is about. God gave all. If you're in my tradition, which is Christian, you have creation. That was God pouring out God. You've got incarnation, God becoming one of us. At a time when they didn't even have indoor plumbing. What? So God becomes one of us and gives us everything, cross and so on. So my sense from my tradition, I don't know what yours might be, from my tradition, God wants all because God gave all. So if I can give God a little piece of space inside me for a little while each day, that's probably a good thing. Because as I think I said early on, deep prayer is God's work. God's working. That's what deep prayer is. God's at work. Remember in Genesis, God spent 6 days working. So God knows what work is. And in my case, I'm a lot of work. You say that about people. How is Mary or Charlie? They're a lot of work. we know what that means. So I'm a lot of work for God, and I just have to recognize that I'm a lot of work for God. And but whatever helpful I can do, I try to do. So that's my intention, is to kind of make some space. And and part of this intention, if you will, is to be attentive. Uh, in other words, why am I doing this? A lot of people ask, "What's meditation?" That's that's a that's a scientific question. What is it? That's what a lot of people ask me. What's meditation? They want more information. And as I think the headline for this workshop is, we're filled with information. What we don't have, what we're missing, is that much deeper life. Uh, and we're hungry for it. So we don't need more information. But what I want to be attentive to is this presence that I believe is not only all around me. Look at that beautiful mountain out there. Wow. God. That same God is within me patiently. So I want to be attentive to that presence. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to know it intellectually, but I need to be attentive to it, and I need to be persistently attentive to it. So think of prayer. Okay, a lot of us are sitting around saying, when am I going to get my dose of vaccine? When am I going to get my second dose? And so on and so forth. And think of this daily attentiveness that is being in one space for a little while each day, practicing silence and solitude as a daily dose. Thomas Keating, who lived here at the monastery, a Trappist monk, he would talk about it, getting your daily dose. So think of your life when it's crazy as your virus, okay? Your virus, and you can't get rid of it without a lot of help. And God's the help. So God is your daily dose, so that you don't get destroyed by the virus of your own self when you're left to your own devices and all your thoughtful companions, if you will. So I think of my sitting in silence and solitude as my daily dose. And if I don't get my daily dose, see, this is a virus that doesn't go away. It can be muted, it can be kept quiet, but it will never completely go away. So you have to work on it every day. And left to your own devices, you're going to lose. Well, this seems to be. So I need to be attentive. I need to be persistent in this prayer, or allowing God to work in me. So something that now this would come more into my daily activities up here in the monastery, but hopefully it can filter into you as well in your life. Ambition and striving for things begin to fade. It doesn't mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean that you don't have hopes. It doesn't mean that you're not trying to accomplish something. What it means is it's not life or death how something turns out. If I don't get this, my life is ruined. If I don't get this, if this doesn't happen, I'm destroyed. I'll stick with the bread baking. Okay, you don't have to know how to make bread for this. I'd like it to be a good loaf of bread for Christian Rocio, so they don't cut me off. I'd like it to be a good. So the monks, so I want them to like the bread. I don't want to say, oh, this bread is just terrible. Get rid of Ryan. Throw him out of here. He's worthless. Well, I am worthless, but in some ways, yes. But I don't want him to throw me out of here. So I want it to be, I'm ambitious for it to be good. I'm striving for it to be good. But because of the silence and solitude, that sitting in one place for a little while each day and letting go, allowing God, as I've been talking, it's not a life and death situation. One day, I'll tell you, I made bread with sand. I didn't know it was sand. It was early on in the process, and I thought you had to get extra gluten. I didn't even know gluten was in the flour. So I opened up a cabinet that said gluten, but it was sand. I didn't know gluten from sand. So I'm pouring sand into the mixture with all the dough. It was a disaster. So I'm surprised they didn't throw me out. I should have killed myself, right? No. I was ambitious for good bread. I was humbled. No, I was humiliated. In any case, this stuff happens. So I am ambitious to do well, but it's not the focus of my day. Sometimes it turns out better than other times. I mean, go back to the jogging. You want to run this great. I live in Boulder. I lived a lot in Boulder, and I used to run this Memorial Day race called Boulder Boulder. It's a 10K. It's a brutal, miserable experience, but in any case, I would do it. And you're ambitious, and you're striving, and you're having a bad day because your workout's not going well. I mean, who wants to live that way? So now I go out jogging. Well, not in the snow, but I go out jogging. I'm jogging. That's it. I'm going to jog. Is it going to be this way or that way? Well, I really don't know. My body will tell me, but I'm going to be persistent, like I was in prayer, and just do it. And some days I don't. Some days I don't have time. It's not the focus of my life. But when I do it, I want to bring the attitude of letting go, of being ego-centered, of ambition being everything. And so the monastery is a place where ambition and striving just don't quite work. And I'll get to that a little bit more. So another thing that I try to let go of is, what's the meaning of my life? God is a mystery, and life in many ways is really a mystery and cannot really be figured out, but it can be lived with great joy if you're not beating yourself up trying to figure what's the meaning of my life. I used to ask that. It was a very important question when I was in my 20s. I remember asking myself, what's the meaning of my life? Why am I here? So I don't say it's never important, but then I wasn't pursuing the deep prayer life and all its ramifications in the rest of my days and weeks. So I was into ambition and striving, so on and so forth. So it's not that that's never a question. Just at some point, as you move in your spiritual journey, you drop it. You just let it go. And I think of what it's a mystery. Why are you here? People say, I'm here. It's a mystery. I think God's calling me. What do I know? I don't have the mind of God, but you get a sense that you're in a good place. And so I let go of that obsession for meaning. I'm not going to spend a lot of time thinking about it at this point in my life. Okay? Now, something that you might practice, especially in these COVID times when you've got so much isolation, if you will, is singing. Now, you may say, I sing very badly. Well, who's around to listen? What do you care? You're not performing for anybody. You just sing. I'm not a good singer. Just sing. Sing what? Sing whatever you want. Make it up. What does it good? Well, it vibrates the fibers of your body, for one thing, I think. I'm suggesting it does to me. Vibrates, and I'll tell you how I sing. It raises your heartbeat a little bit. Isn't that good? Isn't that why you went out jogging in the first place? Yeah, you can walk around the house singing to yourself anything you want. It could boost the metabolism. And it's effort. So it gives you a little bit of tiredness when you go to bed at night. So if there's nobody else around and you're complaining about how there's not enough people around in your life, well, Why don't you turn it into a plus by singing? So we sing here. And what we sing is something called plain chant. Uh, and it's very easy sing song stuff. Well, better be easy if I'm going to do it. It's plain chant and it's prayerful. First of all, because it is easy. It's melodic and it's relatively easy. So you're not so uh, beating your head up about what's next, how do I do this, and so on and so forth. It's relatively easy. The people who come when we didn't have COVID who come to mass, they would sing right along with us. It's pretty easy, and it's a prayerful way that you can pray. It's singing psalms, for instance, is praying with song, psalms of prayers. So it's another way to pray when you're not sitting in that quiet place. So what we do here is we have the quiet time, but we all have the singing time. Um, and we do it habitually. Nature likes habits: spring, summer, fall, winter. So it's an habitual action. That's one of the things that we need to be able to do. I've heard people say, "Yeah, I tried meditation for 2 or 3 weeks, Father. I didn't. It wasn't working." Please give me a break. Uh, it's it's got to be consistent, persistent, and not to be judged based upon how you feel. This is heart prayer, not feeling prayer, not imagination prayer. Those are prayers, but that's not the prayer I'm talking about. Uh, so, in fact, in all kinds of prayers, the monastic tradition of the Cistercians, that's the monastery in which I live, or Trappists as they're called, uh, it really, there's no Cistercian tradition about the practice of meditation. In other words, it's not as if there's a rule book, A, B, C, D. Here's how we do it in the Cistercians. What the Cistercians do is they do what's Lectio. They meditate upon the Bible, scriptures. They think about a little short passage each day, spend some time with that. They work. We all have working tasks. It's how you do it, what you bring to it. And we have choir. This particular monastery, St. Benedict's here in Old Snowmass, meditation, deep meditation, is a focus of our monastery, but it's not a particularly Cistercian focus. So people might go to a monastery and say, "Well, how do you people do, I don't know, centering prayer?" Look at you, what are you talking about? And they're different. But here, there's a particular emphasis on silence and solitude. That's sitting in one place and taking time out to do it each day. But so that we don't make all this Lectio work choir, so we don't make everything, and we don't make any one thing the focus of our life in terms of what we're doing daily, our work, if you will, is we have a bell. Matter of fact, I am the midday bell ringer. Well, that's one of my jobs. So even if I'm baking, I got to stop and get up there to the chapel and pull down on that bell to let people know, stop what you're doing, because we're about to do something else next. So what that bell thing is one of the things that it does. It releases us from being so focused on any one thing, so that we let it go and open ourselves to another thing. So it's not all about building up me with my projects. So I may be baking bread, but I know that bell's going to ring at a certain time. So figure it out, do the best you can. When that bell rings, you stop. So don't have anything in the oven on a timer. So it limits what you can do on the outside, which helps to deal with the ego, which helps to deal with ambition. So it's not a bad idea to have a certain time when you say, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and I'm going to take time out to center myself in stillness, silence, and solitude. And you never let any one thing get so important that at night when you're about to go to bed, you say, I didn't do one iota of silence and stillness. I meant to, but I got busy. So I think part of what the silence and solitude prayer does is the deep meditation prayer does, it will separate you from making any one thing so important that everything else is put aside. It's a different way of life, and not everybody can do it well. But it seems that if you can do it, you do the best you can with what you're doing in that time frame. What we're really talking about is a change of life from the insides, not a change of life from the outsides. And so it is very different from, say, moving up in a corporate structure or being the best at some job that you're doing, because you've decided that no matter what I'm doing in my daily activities, be it family, be it work, be it projects, be it hobbies, be it exercise, I want everything to come out of my heart center. And I suspect, and I would suggest you think about, you will be better at that focused work that you're doing if you have this interior life. In other words, it's possible that by not being so focused on the work, you'll actually do it better. You'll bring something to it from deep inside of yourself that you didn't even know was there. That's what I'm suggesting. Uh, so, we're really about change. And to change from the insides, we have to have a certain detachment. And I think that's what the bell does. It detaches us from being focused too long on any one thing. And you say, I can't do that. I got so much work to do. Oh, you hear that at the monastery. I mean, you hear it's the human condition. Just living in a monastery is going to change you. You got to work at it. So my faith, if you will, is not so much dogmatic, but my faith is that something worthwhile is really going on in my practice of sitting, trying to be in solitude and silence, as I told you, outside noise, inside noise, letting go, opening myself to God's doing the work, which means I don't have to do anything except be detached from outside noises and inside noises. And that's what all methods are meant to do. And God does the rest. So sometimes, of course, I would, as all of us do, say, nothing's going on here. I'm not changing. I don't feel any better, whatever. The faith is something is going on. God's at work in God's time, not my time. I need to be consistent and persistent in the faith that something is going on. And that's really helped me get through. So some mornings I'll say, I'm just going to sit here quietly. I wasn't very quiet. Something was going on, whatever. I don't know what it is. So if I were to ascertain or judge the present moment, sometimes I would say, nothing's happening. But it's what somebody called it the poverty of the present moment. The poverty of the present moment is, in my estimation, in my egoic judgment, nothing was going on. But something is going on. And so the poverty of the present moment, I feel the present moment is nothing. It's lots. If you're practicing the letting go of outside noises and inside noises. So I think there's a lot of present moments that says poverty. But think of it as taking a vow. You don't need to, as a layperson, vow. I vow to accept poverty of the present moment, not economic poverty. A lot of people, they make vows of poverty and it's all economic. But you ask them, do you have any contemplative life? They say, no, I'm too busy. They don't want poverty at the moment. So I think, a lot of people, you can give up stuff outside. It won't change you. It really won't. It can allow you to be less detached to outside things. So you're more able to get open to inside things. But poverty, chastity, and obedience don't change anybody just because you make a vow to do it. They allow you, permit you, open you, assist you. Let's put that. They assist you in the interior life. But the interior life is where you change. So you want the outside world to support the inside world. So be careful of what vows you make, thinking that they're magic. They're not. So we want to be able to turn inward, but not like Narcissus. Narcissus was, in the ancient Greek and Roman gods, was a god who was always inward turning. But that was an inward turning that resisted relationships. This is the thing to keep in mind. And this is where I think the interior life and the world around you are going to complement themselves so well. Here's what happens. You have no interior life. You're all ego-centered. You're all ambition. You're all striving. You're all about you. And you don't get along with people very well. And you say, what's going on? I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice lady. Well, that's because you had no interior life. You were only turned inward about you. And you're resisting relationships with others. I don't resist I want relationships. No, what I mean is you're resisting relationships with others by avoiding the relationship with your heart center. If you can have a relationship with your heart center, you will find that your relationships with others will happen, will grow, and will be very fruitful. And people say, I have no time for interior life. I got all these relationships I got to deal with. Yeah, they sound like burdens to me when you say it that way. I got a family to take care of. Well, I'm so sorry for you. It sounds like a terrible burden. So in fact, I would say by taking some time away from that burden of your family or your job or whatever, you will be better with them and for the job. There's this thing in recovery programs. So someone gets in a recovery program. They're supposed to be nicer people eventually, and the kid will say to the parents in the recovery program, "Mom, you need a meeting." In other words, Mom, you're being a pain in the neck. Go to a meeting. We'll be better off if you get out of here. And so I think that's it. You got to take time out for you, or you'll just be a burden to others. Well, you think they're the burden. You're the burden by the attitude you bring to it. So we resist relationships with others by resisting the interior relationship. We don't want to fall in love with the self without any connection to anything, because that's a false self. Always looking out for number one. It's called bondage to self, and it's very self-absorbing. It's anti-relational, and you're going to have difficult days. Believe me, I have found it so. What solitude does is, letting go of those thoughts, not paying attention to them. That's letting go of that false self, that self that you always, there's not enough for me. It's all about me. So you forget yourself in this solitude. So by going into solitude, you will have better community. You can't have a real good community life if you're like Narcissus, always turned in on yourself. I've seen people who live together, but they're in their own little orbits, each in their own little orbits, and they never intersect. And God, don't disturb anything in my orbit. It's what I call living alone with others. And when you don't have a deep enough spiritual life, you live alone with others. And I've seen people who will go into the practice of, they say, I'm going to practice meditation. I want to be left alone and quiet is what the, because the only time their demons are not beating them up. And that's not enough of a reason to do it. It can be a starter, but you can't just say, I want silence and solitude because it's the only time I'm at peace. I think it'd be a very bad idea to become a monk because it's the only way you feel at peace. Um, you've got to be able to not let those demons, they don't go away. Remember, it's the vaccine, you need the daily dose, the virus. Your demons, if you will, they're around, but they have no power. So I don't want to be a guy who is, and I've been there, believe me. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to be the guy who is only at peace when I'm sitting quietly and centering prayer. The rest of the day, I'm angry and I'm all about me, but I think I'm about you. I think I care, but it's really all about me. So that's a bad place to be. And I think if it's where you are, but you stay with it, at some point, I think God will let you know, Terry, it's not working. Uh, and you realize that you're not opening yourself enough and you're not working on it the rest of the day in your daily activities. So we're really made for relationship, for love. You think, oh, he's in a monastery, he must all alone by himself. No. The thing is, you learn to love the people around you. Uh, I think the change for me is I used to love the people that were lovable. People who, in other words, conform to my idea of what's the right way to live. And if you didn't live the way I thought you should in your little daily life, then I'm not interested in you. You're a burden. Well, I think love is to love the people around you. And it may be God's humor to put certain people around you that you think impossible to love. But if they're around you, then that's the challenge. To be loving, that doesn't mean you have to approve. I've said it before. I can't understand why somebody would open a package of food and then not seal it up so that it preserves the food. I can't understand why people won't screw a cap back on a jar correctly or not at all. It goes on and on and on. It's your little picadillos, little things that you think are important. Well, they obviously aren't important to the other person. We got to learn to love the people we're around. I think of, I think of Jesus Christ, for instance, in my tradition. The characters he picked to be his followers, what losers. And but I can look at that and say, what losers? But what about me? I'm a priest. And I can tell you, I'm a mess. But God loves me. God loves me in my mess. And out of that will become less mess if I let God be in charge. So we're really made for love, to be loved and to love those around you, not to be searching. Okay, let me see. Is anybody around here worth my love? Please. So this whole monastic vocation, by the way, is a lay vocation. You think, oh, well, I can't do that. Monks are not priests. They're brothers. They're called brothers. They don't get ordained. They don't even have to go to school very much. And believe me, in the history of monastic tradition, they didn't go to school very much. And they have a very simple rule. So you become a monk supposedly because you feel invited to practice a particular way of the interior life. Now, you're not a monk. But keep in mind, it is a lay vocation. So there's something of the monastic that is good for every day. And I've been trying to bring this out to you, not letting your projects control you, not letting outside noises and inside noises control you, at least when you're trying to sit quietly, learning to let go, to have a little detachment, love the people in front of you rather than search around for worthy love. So now, the whole word contemplation, and I'm not sure this really hits right on it, but in Greek, it means to look or to gaze upon. So Chris might put that in the chat right now as I'm talking. In Greek, it means to look, to gaze upon. And it gives you an idea. I'm gazing upon something. I'm looking at something. And in Latin, it's contemplatio. It's view or survey. So it's this idea of seeing. In Hebrew, it's chaza, gaze upon your face. Well, they also felt that no one is allowed to look on the face of God. But it all seems to have this idea, and Westerners will take this and run with it and say, see, I don't see God. I don't see God. Well, I have news for you. Well, I have news for me. God doesn't have any need to be seen. Now, think about it. Don't you want to be seen? You don't want to be that anonymous. You want people to notice you in the world. It's important for us, for our well-being, to be noticed, to be seen, I suppose. Below up here, I'll get to that in a little bit, but we like to be noticed and seen, but God is not us. God's ways are not our ways. God has no need to be seen, so stop trying to see God with your imagination. Because if you see God with your imagination, it feeds your imagination. But one, it's not God, because God's deeper than that. And two, it's not deep prayer. Imagination prayer is not deep prayer. Novenas and all that, and rituals, that's not the deep prayer. It's prayer, but it's not the deep prayer. And it's helpful. It may be necessary, but there's more, as any spiritual religious tradition will tell you, there's more. So stop looking for God with your eyes. People say, I want to see God or I won't believe. Well, if you saw God, you wouldn't need faith. You saw. So I don't look for God. I experience a presence in the mystery of the world around me. And it will just appear. It'll just come. Experiencing a presence just happen. It's a happening. It's in another person. It's in a walk in nature. It can be at your job. All of a sudden, the same thing that you see takes on a new tone, a new coloring, a depth of aspect, speaks to you in a way that it has never spoken to you before. That would be a sign of the presence in the mystery of life. So meditation now can be wordless, of course. It needs to be wordless at some point. That is, you stop thinking words. When you're meditating upon scripture or meditating upon a poem or an event, trying to see the depth of it, if you will, you're thinking words, but as you deepen the meditation, the words are trying to fall away. The alertness stays, but the words fall away. Otherwise, you're just meditating on something. But you're present to the moment. You're still. And solitude will serve that. The present to the moment. Remember I said poverty of moment? That is, you're present to the moment, not to get something. Actually, the emptiness of the moment really is a fullness, I have found. The emptiness of the moment is when something happens. And I think it's that heart center that's really opening up to me. And I'll tell you that a good part of the next part of the day goes pretty well when that happens. So it needs to be wordless at some point. So this meditation, this solitude, letting go of words in your mind, is it requires a distance from words. So you're trying to put some distance between you and words. So when I said, don't pay attention to your companion words and thoughts in your mind, is you're putting some distance. They're going to the periphery. They're not to the center. They're to the periphery. That's putting some distance. I mean, somebody says, well, I went to France last year. Last year you were in France. Now France is a distant place. You're not there anymore. So you're trying to put some distance between you and your thinking words. So this kind of interior silence requires a certain prowess, a certain ability to be in solitude. And I think over time, what does that mean? Over time, you learn to let go of focus on thoughts more and more easily. There'll be days when you can't. There'll be just days when you say, oh, I am so unable. But because you said you're disciplined and you're persistent, you will sit there anyway. Not every day is a picnic, believe me. But you need to be persistent. A love relationship is different day to day, is it not? I mean, you may be married to somebody, and one day you're so glad you married them. They're the most wonderful. The next day, I was insane to marry this person. I'm married to a complete idiot. So it, it's prayer is relational, and some days it's just, but you don't get rid of it. So you stay with it. I don't know why some days it isn't. Is it? You know why I think it is? I think God's challenging me to see how unconditional is my love for God. You just want to be with God when it suits you, but as soon as you're bored, you get out and go do something else. Well, that's outside life, which I don't think is worth it either. Just because you're bored, you drop something. But that's a different thought. So my solitude is not just letting go of my words and thought companions, but it's also a contentment in God. I didn't say content being with God because you don't necessarily have any sense of being with anybody. I don't know. I mean, but what I do know is I'm in God, no matter whether I feel it, don't feel it. I'm in God, and I'm content with that. It's not a feeling necessarily. It can be, but it's not necessarily a feeling. I'm content in God is a leap of faith. And so that's what keeps me at it. I'm in God and I'm content with that. I don't need results. The contentment of the relationship does not need results. A lot of times, the reason we get upset with people in relationship is the results are not what we want. You're not doing what I want. This relationship is not working. I'm not getting what I want because you're not doing it. Well, that's not prayer. That's not a good relationship. I'm content being in God. I don't have to feel it one way or the other. So the mystic is, I think, one who's content in being in God. And therefore, I think, not therefore, but I think a mystic is one who encounters God directly. Now, in my tradition, we have what's called sacraments. And a big one is a Holy Communion or Eucharist. And people will say to me, I encountered God in the Eucharist. Well, in my tradition, you're supposed to, but it is not a deep enough encounter to change you. Because as we've all seen, there's a lot of hypocrisy. People go to church, They receive communion, and they're not nice people. They're prejudiced, they're bigoted, they're judgmental, they're resentful, and blah, 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 the human condition. But they go to Mass and communion. So it can be, but many times it's not. And it's not mystical, because the mystical experience is one in which there's no intermediary. That little host, consecrated host, is the intermediary. The ritual is the intermediary. The sacraments, the intermediary, connect you to God. And it does, but not at a depth that will transform you. So the mystic is one who has a direct encounter with God, which is why at this monastery, after we receive communion, we're Catholic monks, we sit quietly to let the encounter be more direct without any intermediary, if you will. So all religious experiences at depth, a really deep religious experience, is one that has no intermediary. It's you and this power, this presence, this light, this force, this ultimate reality, I think is what Thomas Keating called ultimate reality. You say, what's that? That's why it's a good term, because you can't come up with what is it. It just is. And you have this direct encounter with, that's a religious experience. And people who've had a religious experience will tell you how it made a difference in their life. And that, I think, is moving towards the mystical. So I think you can have this kind of direct encounter without any intermediary in a deep meditation. And then, as God takes you into contemplative, that's what you'll get there is a sense of oneness, a sense of unity, a sense of being one with. It's no longer God and me. It just is, and I'm part of it. That's the deep religious experience. So the sense of separate self completely drops away. You don't get that in church, the sense of separate self. The sense of separate self, separate from others, drops away. This sense of oneness you cannot create, but you can experience it. And when it happens, wow, it makes a difference. And it did happen to a fellow named Thomas Merton, for a matter of fact. So a moment about Merton, if you will. And then I think I'm going to have to stop because we've been at this an hour. So I'll just go to Merton. He felt, now remember I talked about getting silent still. He felt that nature can be a place of solitude and prayer. Nature. And he used to do this walk every day, same walk. But I think the difference is don't go out looking for something, because then you've already established what it's going to be. It's like someone going out for a jog and they say, oh, I'm going for a jog. And here's A, B, C, and D are going to happen. And none of them happen. And then you get upset. So you got to enter into nature completely open. Don't go walking and saying, I'm going to do 10,000 steps for my Fitbit. Well, you can, but it's not going to be very spiritual. So you try to go out, if it's going to be a walk in nature, just do it and be open to what's there. And I notice I'm more open to what's there if I'm not paying attention to my thoughts. I will go for a walk out here and talk about quiet. Wow, nobody else is around. I go out for a walk and I didn't notice anything because I've been thinking the whole time. So Merton's idea is go for the walk and don't have any expectations. Now, his abbot was a guy named Dom James, and he was his abbot for 18 years. And they had issues because Merton was well known. He was herald, and his abbot said a monk is supposed to be unknown, unheralded, and unsung. And Merton was the opposite of all that. So they had issues. And Merton, he died when he was only in his early 50s. I think he was 53. He was born in 1915. He got his own hermitage in 1960. Funny, he was asking and asking. Dom James wouldn't give it to him. Finally, he got it in 1960. Interesting enough, he entered the seminary on December 10th, and he died on December 10th. He entered at age 27, and he died 27 years later. Just a little here and there. And he died on Abbot James's birthday. Abbot James was dead by then. But here's Merton's vision of hermitage, and then I think we will stop. So you got to be open to when somebody says hermitage, you think it's running off by yourself and being alone. Here's his idea of hermitage, and he lived in one. He says his vision of it was that it was a place where artists, intellectuals, activists, theologians, and monks could all come together for wholesome, open conversation. But none of them would be able to do this unless they had a contemplative life. So an artist, even if he or she says, I don't believe in the existence of, if they're true artists, they're in touch with their heart. They just don't have the sense of that God, their God is the box God, and they don't believe in that. I'm talking about a power, a presence, an energy, a force, ultimate reality. And I think if you're an artist, you got to be in touch with that. So it's 10 o'clock, and I started at 9, so you've really been sitting through a lot. What we're going to do, I believe, Chris, is take a short break and then do a 20-minute quiet meditation and then questions and answers. Is that correct?
That's right. We'll start back again at 10:12.
10:12, everybody. Chance to go to the bathroom. See you in a little bit. Let me know when we're ready.
All right, we've got a couple minutes and we'll be ready. I will let you know.
All right.
We're to everybody on.
Tell them
We're a
they can
limit.
support me.
Yes,
We're what?
I will share that. I will share that on the screen, and I will share that again. Also, everybody that's on, we're a limit of 100 people today. We're right at 95. So if you get out, you might not can get back in. We'll change that for next time. I know. We thought there were going to be 75 people today. We didn't do a registration today to make it a little bit easier. We'll have to add to over 100 people for this Zoom thing because it won't allow us for 100 people.
Well, that's because of you. I never get 95, so it's you who's drawing them.
I think it's you. Might be Holy Spirit too. We'll give him credit.
Oh, I forgot about the Holy Spirit.
I'm trying to make a good joke out of all that, but nothing's coming.
Change my background just for the heck of it.
It's a little different there. It doesn't look like outside today with all the snow we're getting.
Blizzard, blizzard.
And before we get started on sharing prayer, just to let you know that you can support us or support Terry actually through his Paulus ministry. Through Venmo, I've got the code on the screen right now. Or you can send a check directly to the monastery because Father Terry is going to be with us for a while. And you can send it directly to the monastery in intention with Father Terry Ryan. His code is Venmo code is Terry-Ryan-25. And Father Terry, you can start us back.
Okay, everybody. Welcome. Oh, let me get out of that. Welcome back. And we have a bookstore gift shop, which is in the background now of my virtual backgrounds, just to let you know. But what we're going to do now is we're going to attempt to take 20 minutes, and I'll be the timer, of opening ourselves to God at work, opening ourselves to a deepening of our meditation. And so my suggestion, as I've been making from the get-go in this, is to don't pay attention to outside noises. Right now we have none except the massive amount of snowflakes that are falling outside. Don't pay attention to the outside noises and try not to pay attention to the inside noises, words, and thoughts. And otherwise, just let God do God's job, whatever that is, for 20 minutes. And then we're going to have some Q&A time. Okay? And I got my little timer here. And so let us begin. Okay. When you're ready, just open your eyes if you've had them closed. And we're getting back here. So this is an opportunity for a little bit of Q&A. Not saying that I got the A, but you may have the Q. The questions. And how would you do that? You can unmute yourself and just speak. You can put something in the chat. And if I don't see it, Chris Lake will see it. Or you can do the hand raising if you know what you're doing on your screen. So we're just open to a little Q&A. Well, I've emphasized silence. I guess everybody's practicing it.
Hey, Father Terry, why don't you tell them about our next meeting, which will be the second part of this conversation to start Lent off on February 20th. You want to talk anything about that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you're on the ball with that. Let me look here. Yes, this is only part one. And so on the 17th of February, no, the 20th of February, correct? We are going to have part two of this, at which point I will have had my second COVID vaccine shot. So they're really on the ball up here in Pitkin County. So that'll be part two. And it'll be just continuing on silence, things haven't said this time, and stillness, solitude, and just different ways of coming at this. As a matter of fact, if you are looking for, I have a couple of authors that, of course, we will get in the bookstore soon enough. One is, I think, a Trappist. His name is Paul Quenon, Quenon, Paul Quenon, and writing on this. And the other is Michael Paul Gallagher, a priest. And I think that they put a book out together. And I was looking around for that book in my library. I'm the librarian, by the way, as well. Not just a bread baker. And I couldn't find it. I don't know where it is. It's someplace. But Michael Paul Gallagher and Paul Quenon, a Jesuit and a Trappist. So Gallagher is the Jesuit and Quenon is the Trappist. So you might look around for that, and we'll look around to get it in our bookstore. We have a wonderful bookstore, by the way. Lots of good things because we emphasize interfaith and ecumenism very much up here. This is actually the week of prayer for Christian unity. I know in my Catholic Christian tradition, we have a week especially devoted to Christian unity, which is not only bringing together all these Christian denominations, but learning from one another and maybe coming closer together so we can share better, but also interfaith. And so our bookstore is very much devoted to that. We have a lot of people that come up. Well, nobody's coming up here. Hardly anybody comes up here now during COVID, but when they do come, they don't have to be Catholic. They don't have to be Christian. They can come to our retreat houses or rooms, and as long as they're on that spiritual journey, that's the important thing. So
We have some questions,
our
Father Terry.
bookstore, all that stuff. Yeah.
All right. So Robert Cruz asked, is a mantra useful? The Jesus prayer?
The Jesus prayer is a mantra prayer, and The Prayer of the Pilgrim, I think, is the name of the book. The Prayer of the Pilgrim was the Jesus prayer. This fellow just traveled through Russia, and then he went into Europe. And as he was just traveling, he was a pilgrim, not necessarily trying to get from A to B. He was just a pilgrim. And he learned this prayer from an Orthodox monk, and called the Jesus prayer. Jesus, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner, I think is one form of the prayer. And he would just say that over and over again. And eventually, as he was traveling, the prayer would say itself inside of him. So as he was traveling, looking around, and this would be another example of how to do this thing without, I'm emphasizing the staying in one place and letting go of all words, and then hopefully that connection to the heart will emanate to connecting to your day. Well, this fella did it that way, the Jesus prayer, to where no matter what he was doing, he was in touch with Jesus Christ, because he had just said it so many times that he stopped saying it, and it said itself in his heart. So it's a way, it's another way. I haven't taught the Prayer of the Pilgrim in quite some time. Maybe we'll get back to that someday. And that, in other words, so you are sitting on your bus or maybe in your car driving. I think you could do it because you could still pay attention to the road, just as he had to pay attention to where he was walking so he didn't step in a hole. And you can be saying a mantra prayer. There is a way of doing this, getting still and silent within with a mantra. John Damain had taught that, the mantra prayer. And you would say it, you would start out saying this mantra over and over. It could be Lord Jesus, or they have it in Hinduism, Om Mani Padme Om. And at some point, you say it for a while, trying to get yourself centered. That is letting go of outside noises, inside noises. And the mantra helps you to get sort of a little more still and quiet. And then at some point you drop it. And that's how I think the apophatic and the cataphatic, as they say, the work together. See, we're all going to the same place. We're not going to different places with different methods. We're all going to the same place, which is ultimate unity, oneness, a sense of being one with the world around us, in which there's no sense of you separated from anything else around you. That's the ultimate reality. God is one, as we would say in my tradition. So, and that changes your life, and it changes the way you are. It's very hard to hate people if you feel like you're one with them. You can disagree with them, but you don't hate them, and you act a certain way towards them. Maybe it's a little bit like reaching across the aisle. I don't know. But in any case, so
Next question.
What's next?
Yes, from Eunice. How many times a day do you need to have silence in order not to react negatively to others who are irritating you?
Well, I can only say it from my own personal perspective. And of course, living where I live, but I think living wherever I lived, I could have done this. And I just do a little bit better here, I think. I start out in the morning, early-ish part of the morning. In other words, I will do a little, because we have what's called vigils, but I get up before vigils. But if I were, say, more in the world, living in a rectory or something like that, I would have just a little something I would read, maybe a psalm. And I would not even make myself finish the psalm. If I suddenly felt the urge to be still, I would drop the psalm. But it's just a little segue from getting out of bed and going to the bathroom and stretching my back. And then I sit for about a half hour. And I try to do the same in the evening. And what I try to do now is take out time in the middle of the day. I even did this when I was living in Boulder. I just think I'm more consistent here. Right in the middle of the day, I would take out time. And I often, then I would sit. So that it'd be morning, afternoonish, and evening. It cannot be too late in the evening for me. I think you have to go by your biological clock. And I've heard people say, I'm not a morning person. It just doesn't work anymore. I says, good. Maybe you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night and you're wide awake. Instead of watching Netflix or whatever, you do your meditation. I am pretty shot by 7:30, and I generally go to bed about 8 o'clock. But if I'm getting up at 3:30, 4, it all works. You just have to find. I'm a morning person, so you just have to find out what works for you, and then you go with that. But I think you need something in the middle of the day because, as you say, people, places, and things can get irritating, or we become irritated at them. And so we want to try to get away from that. So Thomas Keating used to say twice a day for 20 minutes. But as he got older, he said 30 minutes twice a day, not 20. So, and he was asked when he was living here, he had reached an age when he no longer could get out. He had pneumonia issues, and so he wasn't traveling anymore, and he was just living in the house in the infirmary, but he could get around, made his own breakfast and dinner. He'd say he'd sit 3 or 4 hours a day. Now, that worked in his life, but the thing is, he had been at this long enough that he could do that. So you can build up to it. I mean, just as someone builds up to running a marathon, which for me would take a lot more than 3 or 4 hours at my age, if I could do it at all. But you build up to it by consistently doing something every day. And so he was consistent with it over most of his life. And so when he actually had the lifestyle that allowed that, he was able to do it 3 or 4 hours a day and just sit there and not even move.
All right. Next question. Elizabeth asked, did you say I love you and God loves you during meditation?
I do. I have found myself saying out loud, but hopefully quiet enough that I'm not disturbing somebody. But I say it in my room. I say it in the chapel. It just comes out. It came out during this 20 minutes. And the thought came to me, is my mic on? It just comes out. I love you. And of course, that sense of being loved. So it's not a prayer in which you have no feelings. It's that you're not trying to have a feeling. You're not directing the goal of the prayer. Remember, it's God's work. But if you just feel love, it's a gift. God gave it to you that day. So.
All right. Which Keating book, I guess if you're starting to read Thomas Keating, which one would you read first?
Well, the first one I read was Open Mind, Open Heart. And I felt that was quite a good intro. I've had someone say it didn't work for them, but Open Mind, Open Heart. If you're an addict, you might look at, I think, a book called Divine Therapy. We have both of those in our bookstore. I think it's called Divine Therapy.
That's it. Yep.
I don't have it right here. Yeah. Any case, in which he does a very good job, by the way. He had no particular addiction himself, but he was very good job at 12-step programs and contemplative practice. He gets it, in other words. So that was a good one. But Open Mind, Open Heart was the first one I read. And none of his books are very long. I just think that it's a good starter. By the time he got to the end of his life, actually, they were publishing after he died. Well, they're still publishing Merton, and he's been dead since 1968. So, as I like to say, Merton wrote more after he died than when he was living. But towards the end, Thomas was very much about oneness, unity, or is it poof? No sense of self in the sort of divine therapy. In other words, God, all this prayer is divine therapy. Addiction, well, we're addicted to self, to separateness. to over against, and so on and so forth. So the prayer he found, and he was willing to emphasize more and more and more ultimate reality, oneness, non-duality was a word that he was using more towards the end. Non-duality. You'll hear that whenever there's an interfaith gathering of guru types or whatever. Non-duality is, I think, the big thing now, and it's as a term, it's always been important, but as a term now, especially in a world that is so divided, so over against, so it's me against you. The whole idea of non-duality, which you'll only get on a contemplative practice in whatever tradition you are.
And I would add, after Open Mind, Open Heart, Invitation to Love would be the next one, and probably Intimacy with God. Both of those are great books too. They talk about the history of it. They're both really good, and give you an insight to Thomas Keating. Open Mind, Open Heart's about the practice. Those other two about the history of it with the practice in it. So those are all good. Next question. What is the best way to
how do people buy these books from the bookstore?
Snowmassbookstore.com. You can pick it up locally now, or we'll ship them to you.
Snowmassbookstore.com. Okay.
Yep. What is the best way to let go of thoughts as they come to you in meditation?
I would have what I do, Keating has recommended a sacred word. It's not a mantra. It's a word that you come up with yourself. Doesn't have to, as long as it doesn't make you think about much. And the word is to remind you why you're there, which is to not pay attention to your thoughts. And so I use, sometimes I use breath. I just notice I'm breathing. But what I do a lot now is let go. There's a phrase, it's used often in 12-step programs called let go, let God. I just say let go, because it's two phrases, let go, breathe in, breathe out. And it just reminds, what am I doing here? Well, I'm not here to think about lunch or whether my toe hurts. I'm here to let go of thoughts and be open to God. So the word let go immediately reminds me, I say it once or twice, and it just is enough to separate me from being so tied up with this thought. Usually when I'm realizing I'm thinking about something, I'm in the middle of it. I don't know when it started, I'm in the middle of it usually. It's not as if, oh, I'm about to think of something, I'm right in the middle of it. So instead of saying, no, don't think about that, which is just another thought, I just notice my breathing or let go. Sometimes I say Jesus. Well, depends where I am in the prayer. Breathing underwater. Is that it? Yeah, you might look at the chats, folks, and see various ideas and books. But we are, we've been at this now about 2 hours, and I am the Saturday pizza maker. It's actually relatively easy, but I gotta go turn on the oven and get to my next chores. So, Chris, can we come to an end?
Father, may I make one comment first before?
Of course.
This is Janine Schiavone from Parker, Colorado. And I have been a practitioner of centering prayer for many, many years. And I confess that I've been struggling lately to incorporate it into my daily life. And I say that with great humility because I actually lead a centering prayer session Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Zoom at noon. And if it were not for that commitment that I made to the community to do that when COVID started last year, I don't know that I'd be disciplining myself enough to even do it those 3 times a week. So I'm struggling because I do want to incorporate this and make it a daily practice once again, like I used to a long time in the past. And I appreciate your comments about just saying, instead of watching Netflix, which I'm hooked on, um, to just do it for whatever period of time I can manage. And do you think that that's a good way to do it? Just start small and try to get in those other 4 days a week that I'm missing?
Yes, start over. I tell people who have who were in Alcoholics Anonymous, for instance, and they were really into it. Now they're not, and they feel all ashamed and guilty. And I say, just start over. Why beat yourself up? You're still alive. Start over. So start over and start small. Don't let your ego take you to, I got to do this big. And I think that having a commitment on Zoom to somebody else is a good idea. It's a little bit like when we were all getting together. People have commitments to go to a prayer group. And one reason you go is to get you to do it. And the second reason is because you pick up the synergy from the group.
Yes.
You may have a blah morning, but somebody else is all fired up and some of their energy will get into you. So I would say just start over. Don't beat yourself up. I mean, a lot of people stop and go, stop and go. I mean, as you get, the world's not full of mystics. Well, it is. We're potential, but it takes practice. And if you stop, you start over. So, I mean, I don't run in the wintertime up here, but when the spring comes, I'll run. I'll start over. It's okay.